So now that we've gone through our top news and rumors, let's now go through my special segment for today. You guys have loved my list, especially some of my rankings that we put out, a lot of my top 10s. So let's now go through the top 5 most underrated teams heading into the 2018-2019 season. What do I mean by underrated? I mean teams that across the internet are currently not considered playoff teams, have worse records than I currently expect them to have, or are just frankly not in the playoff picture at all, which makes no sense to me. And the first team I got to bring up, number 5 most underrated team in the NBA. I can't even believe that a team with LeBron James on it is considered underrated, but that's what I'm considering them. The Los Angeles Lakers are my number 5 most underrated team in the NBA. Why? Because it seems that every NBA analyst right now has them missing the playoffs. Does that make as little of sense to anyone else as it does to me? Is LeBron James not on this team right now with a multiple top 5 picks, a great bench, and a couple of nice role players on it as well? This is the definition of a team that LeBron James has brought to the playoffs multiple times over. Not only do I think that this team is going to make it to the playoffs, this team is going to win almost 50 games this upcoming season. If you really don't think that the Lakers are not going to make it to the playoffs this year, I want you to sit back, I want you to take a deep breath, and I want you to understand that you're wrong. Because as long as LeBron James is on a team, that team is going to make the playoffs. Just because he's in the Western Conference with a bunch of great young players doesn't mean he's all of a sudden going to be leading a 10-seed Lakers team. This is going to be a much better team than people expect. A lot of good veterans, a decent head coach in Luke Walton, and a lot of great young players. Plus, oh yeah, the best player in the NBA. Lakers coming in as my number 5 most underrated team. Let's go to number 4. And you know what? I read your guys' comments on YouTube. I do. I don't look at the negative ones because you guys are just evil sometimes. But I look for the constructive ones. And all of the constructive criticism that I got about my Western Conference rankings was that I was too low on the Spurs. So I hear you, and after thinking about it more, I agree. I think I was too low on the Spurs simply because, look, last year, without Kawhi Leonard, they won almost 50 games without him. Now they add DeMar DeRozan. They're bringing back Rudy Gay. They have a great bench going into the season. They add Lonnie Walker in the draft. Why would this team not be higher than the 7th seed? Why wouldn't they be a number 6 or a number 5, possibly even number 4 seed in the Western Conference? They still have the best coach in the NBA. They have a great defensive backcourt with Dejounte Murray, and they have a very, very front court, including the likes of All-Star and All-NBA player LaMarcus Aldridge. This is going to be one of the only teams in the NBA to have 2 players that were on All-NBA teams last season. So no Kawhi, no problem. Watch out for the Spurs to be one of the more surprising teams in the NBA, despite losing a top 10 player in the game. Let's go to my number 3 team, and this is the team I think I'll probably get the most slack for, and that's the Detroit Pistons. I think they're pretty underrated, not because I think they're going to make a run at the finals or anything, but I've seen a lot of people leave them out of the playoff picture in the Eastern Conference, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. They have 2 very good players in their front court, Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin. You can make an argument that Andre Drummond is one of the 5 best centers in the NBA. He made my top 10 list, didn't quite make my top 5. They do have Blake Griffin down there as well. Full healthy season, full off season in Detroit. He should be better. And oh yeah, they just added the reigning coach of the year in Dwane Casey. If you don't think this Pistons team is going to be at least better than they were last year, I don't know what you're watching. This Pistons team, I don't think they're going to be some world beater or an Eastern Conference Finals team. But personally, I think they're going to end up making the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. They should be at least a 6 seed, maybe a 7 seed if you want to be a little lower. But people leaving them out of the playoff picture for the East is just kind of silly to me. I just don't really see another team that has the elite talent that they have on it in Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond. Let's go to my number 2 team. I don't know if you can really consider them underrated, but I do. I think the Milwaukee Bucks are absolutely underrated. In fact, I think the Milwaukee Bucks are a sneaky dark horse to make it to the NBA Finals. They have the best player in the conference right now in Giannis Antetokounmpo. We'll see what happens with Kawhi. But right now, it's Giannis. He was amazing last year, fully healthy going into this year, and it looks like he bulked up again. But they also added Mike Budenholzer, who's one of the better coaches in the NBA. Had a couple bad years in Atlanta, but that roster was just dumpster. It was a dumpster fire of a roster. but they have a lot of really good role players on this team that do fit well around Giannis, but just weren't used properly last year. Eric Bledsoe had a rough year. Chris Middleton, I think, is going to take a step forward this year. They add Dante DiVincenzo in the draft this past season. They add Ersan Ilyasova as well. Tony Snell should be a good player for them as well. So watch out for this Bucks team this year. I think with Giannis officially coming back to, bulked up, ready to go, he looks like his shooting stroke has improved as well. This Milwaukee Bucks team is going to be a threat in the Eastern Conference this year. Do not be surprised if they end up as a top 3 seed in the East, maybe a top 4 seed as well. With Mike Budenholzer and with Giannis, this team has enough elite talent on it in order to go a long way in the Eastern Conference playoffs this year. So that's my number 2 team that I think is underrated in this upcoming season. Let's now go to my number 1 most underrated team, and this comes directly from the YouTube comments on my Western Conference rankings video, the Denver Nuggets. I don't know what you guys don't see that I'm seeing, but what I see on this Denver Nuggets roster is an elite center of an elite backcourt with Jamal Murray and Gary Harris, a fun couple of players on the wing, and a great coach in Mike Malone. What am I missing here? I mean, the only thing that they had missing last year was health. They lost Paul Millsap, who's one of the most important players on their team. They obviously gave him a max contract, so he's a huge part of what they're planning to do. But what am I missing here with the Denver Nuggets? I don't see it. They have scoring. They should improve on defense this year with a full season of health. They have a fantastic bench. They added Isaiah Thomas. What am I missing with the Denver Nuggets? Like, why is this team not considered one of the best teams in the NBA and a playoff team, a shoo-in playoff team in the West? I know they struggled last year, but they were one of the most injury-prone teams in basketball last year. But they shedded the contract of Wilson Chandler. They shedded the contract of Darrell Arthur. They shedded the contract of Kenneth Faried. They added a bunch of good young players. They add Isaiah Thomas as an elite backup point guard in the NBA. Jamal Murray should take a big step forward, and we know that Nikola Jokic is already one of the 5 best centers in the NBA. Top 10 for me. You guys say top 5. I don't really care. He's a fantastic player all around. So I'm not really sure what I'm missing with the Denver Nuggets. You guys seem to think that they're going to be a lot worse than I do. So let me know in the comment section below. What am I missing here? What am I missing here with the Denver Nuggets? Why are they not going to be a playoff team heading into this year? But more importantly, who is the most underrated team in the NBA heading into this season? Is it the Spurs? Is it maybe the Raptors? Is it the Milwaukee Bucks? Let me know. I want to hear from you guys. But that's going to do it for me today. You can follow me on Twitter at SportsDean for all your NBA news and updates. And remember to catch NBA Now Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time here on YouTube and on Facebook.